Hello everyone, it's good to be here again, going through the HKDSE reading paper with you, and I hope you are still doing fine, not terribly exhausted by the last videos. And so back here is HKDSE 2013 English Language Paper 1 Reading Part B2. So a very quick recap is here. Last time we covered the first passage in part A, Terracotta Warriors in Color, and this time we are moving on to a very different subject matter, which is dystopian literature. The triumph of dystopian literature. What's behind the boom in dystopian fiction for young readers? A very different subject matter, and from the exam report we've learned that it was quite a challenging topic to many candidates from that year, and I believe it is equally challenging to many of you. So like last time, I'm providing you with the answer key, the marking scheme on the left hand side of the screen, and on the right hand side we have the passage. So what we're going to do is to guide you through the questions and together with the answers, and give you some explanation based on the passage here, and to find out clues and tips and keywords that may bring you to the answer. And so once again, what I've done with the paper here is I've highlighted some of those question numbers in yellow and in red. Those are marked yellow are questions that are got right by only 2/3 of the candidates. In other words, 1/3 of the candidates failed to get the correct answer, and that's why these questions marked yellow may require some more explanation. And for those of the questions that are marked red, those are the most challenging ones, to give you a perspective. That is only 1/3, less than 30% of the candidates that year got these questions correct. So as you see, a number lower than 30% of candidates got this right. So they may be challenging and for you too. So I will talk more about those questions. Now let's get started with question 46, dystopian literature. According to paragraph 1, dystopia for young readers is. So how is it described in paragraph 1? Let's do a little bit of reading here. Dystopia, paragraph 1. Dystopia is an imaginary place or condition in which everything is bad, and in the dystopian fiction, this has traditionally been characterized by an authoritarian government or some kind of oppressive control. For young readers, dystopia isn't a future to be averted. It is a version of what's already happening in the world they inhabit. So in other words, you find some striking features of dystopian society in dystopian literature. You find authoritarian government, find some kind of oppressive power, control, and is already happening in our world, and isn't a future to be averted. Isn't a future to be averted, because in fact it is a reality where they are already living. So going back to the answers here, A to D, we find that C is the correct answer, because it's a world similar to their own. Well, is imaginary, of course. It's an imaginary place, of course, but it is in no way perfect. It's quite problematic which is very bad, problematic society. So A isn't the answer. And is it unfamiliar? Well, it's a terrifying place, but it is in no way unfamiliar. Or quite on the contrary, it is very familiar to young readers, and that's why C is the answer. D, of course, is not, because it's not a word to be avoided as put here. It isn't a future to be averted. So averted is another word for avoided. So quite the opposite. So C should be the answer. Of course, 47, it refers to dystopia. And let's move on to 48, paragraph 2. Let's move on now to paragraph 2. Rebecca's dead. So we see the name, and we better highlight it, as we learned from the last videos. The clever thing to do is whenever you spot a similar word, keyword, a name, you better underline it for your own attention. So when you reach me, that's the name, the title of the novel. It takes place in New York City, where somebody grew up. Somebody, the name, so it should be Rebecca's dead. In the 1970s, NYC, New York City, had a higher. So if you go through the paragraph here and do a little bit of reading, you will find that New York City used to be plagued by very high crime rate. So if you go through it, it should be crime rate should be the words for these two blanks. Where are the words? Let's see. Really? Well, anyway, we find some other keywords there, like 1970s. Yeah. With a great deal of autonomy. So they had a lot of freedom. They had a high degree of freedom. So if you go through the paragraph, you would find that in the older days, they had a great deal of self-autonomy, a great deal of freedom. Yeah. So they could walk around. And however, these days, right now, is a rare freedom. So I've marked what it was used to be in red in the 1970s, and I've marked in blue what is the reality right now. So the red, in the older days, they had a lot of autonomy. Right now, freedom is a rare thing. And we also find this crime rate, a significant drop in New York's crime rate since her youth. And I better highlight it with the same color, blue, because it's what's happening right now. It has a far lower crime rate right now, while they are enjoying much less freedom. In other words, in the older days, while they were enjoying a lot of autonomy, a lot of freedom back in 1970s, the crime rate was much higher. So that's the logic and that's the relationship. And so when you go back to the blank with that understanding, you will see that in 1970s, the red, NYC had a higher crime rate, because right now the crime rate is much lower. There is a significant drop right now. So the opposite in the older days, a higher crime rate. But the children back then in the 1970s, they had more freedom, autonomy. So you see the red. In contrast, today, the blue, they are enjoying less freedom, much less freedom, and they've and it's much safer now, and because of the lower crime rate, that's why NYC today is safer. You also see the word here. The world may be safer, but at the same time it's also less conducive to adventure. They have a lower chance to have an adventure, and therefore to adventure stories. So here are two pictures, and so to fill in the last blank, 45, children are no more protected by their parents because the place is safer, lower crime rate, safer, and they are more protected by the parents, and therefore they are enjoying much less freedom. So because it mentions here that the world of our hovered over teens and preteens may be safer. They are overprotected, they are covered up by their parents, they are sheltered, they are controlled by their parents, hovered over. That's a word. So you don't exactly find the word protect or controlled here, but from these words you know that the meaning should be protecting or controlling. The parents controlling, protecting their children. It's a more challenging one because it requires some understanding, your own interpretation of the whole text, and the word is not founded there. Yeah. Let's continue. Let's continue with the next bit. Question 49. Explain why many teens like reading the Hunger Games. So that brings us to the next paragraph. Perhaps that's why so many of them are reading the Hunger Games. Interestingly, the third paragraph, paragraph 3, starts off with a statement saying that they are reading. So many of them are reading. What's the reason? Well, we find the connection there. That's why, but where can the reason be found? Well, actually it points back to the previous paragraph, paragraph 2. Because of that, the change that New York City is witnessing, the young people are enjoying, they're reading the Hunger Games, and they're enjoying the series more and more. That's the reason. So going back to the blue, because of the fact that the crime rate is lowering, but at the same time they are being protected and sheltered by their parents, and they are enjoying less freedom, and they are having few opportunities to have adventures. That's why they are reading the Hunger Games and they are enjoying the series. So if you put all those bits together, you get this answer. Because they want more adventure, because they don't have opportunities to have adventure. They lack adventure because the world is, of course you can copy it from the original passage, because the world is now less conducive to adventure, because they have less freedom now. So if you can figure out the comparison here in paragraph 2, you will have no problem answering question 48 as well as 49. 50. So now that we have settled the difficult bit, now let's move on to 50. Give one piece of evidence that shows a success, blah blah blah. Well, it's easy to get the answer here. Yeah. More than 2.3 million copies are sold. That's it. Yeah. 51. So while 50 is a comparatively easy question, 51 is quite another thing. Based on the information in paragraph 3, complete the book synopsis of the Hunger Games by writing only one word in each blank. Make sure that the answers are grammatically correct. Pay attention to word form, plurals, tenses, gerund, infinitive, etc. So now let's stay there at paragraph 3. Now we know that it's a trilogy. It means a series made of 3 books is a trilogy. Alright. So the Hunger Games is, the umbrella term for the whole trilogy, but there are 3 books, and we know that the 3rd book is called Mockingjay, while the other 2 books, the previous 2 books, are called The Hunger Games and Catching Fire. So Hunger Games is the name for the whole series, but it's also the title for the first book. Going back there, the Hunger Games is the which book in the trilogy, so it must be the first one. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so it is the first book, but unfortunately it was a very difficult one for the candidates in that year. Only 24% of them got this right, probably because the title The Hunger Games can be confusing. The story takes place sometime in the future. Why? Now let's see. Okay, because of this. Sorry, should have done this. Which depicts a futuristic North America. So it is sometime in the future. It has to be a point in time. Yeah. All right. Now moving on to the 3rd blank and the 4th blank, things are pretty obvious. So we see that there's 2 children from each district. So it's basically the synopsis. 2 children from each district. The answer is there. And the outdoor arena, so you can literally copy from the original text. But the 5th and the 6th blanks are more challenging there. Now let's take a more careful look. The contest is held in an outdoor arena and shown. Now this is the problem bit. If you go back to the original passage, every year 2 children from each district are forced to fight to death in a televised contest called the Hunger Games, which are held in a huge outdoor arena. What is interesting is that it is a televised contest. In other words, it's broadcast on TV, and in other words, it is shown on TV. So putting them together, you find all the 3 the bits of information. The contest is held in a certain area, outdoor arena, and then it is shown on TV, and the only survivor, the sole survivor, the last survivor, the winner of the contest is the last child left alive. So it's basically saying the same thing. The sole survivor is the last child who is left alive, and that person would be the winner. In other words, the survivor, the only survivor, the last child wins, lives. Now mind you, as everything is put in the present tense here, are forced, is held, takes place, and so the answer here is better be put in the present tense too. Instead of one lived, it has to be wins and lives. Alright, so that's quick question 51. 52, true, false, not given. So let's go through it. The Hunger Games is the only example of the popularity. Well, of course not. If you go through it very quickly, you find a number of examples of dystopian literature, like Uglies, the Ugly series, the Maze Runner, etc. When you move on to the next side of the article, you find some more, like the House of Stairs. So that's what you can do while you are doing the paper. Underline names, keywords that may help you better understand. Alright, so these are some. Anyway, now of course, at the bottom of the paragraph you find Brave New World 1984 as well. We'll get back to that later. Now, in the Uglies, teenagers conform to a standard prettiness by undergoing surgery. Well, it's pretty straightforward here. Yes, they undergo surgery to conform to a universal standard. Yes, true. Most participants of the internet most participants of the internet discussion boards are teenagers. Well, we don't know. We have no idea. Although internet discussion board is mentioned here, we have no idea about the age of the participants. So, well, yeah, that's it. Last, Brave New World 1984 were written for American school children. Is that right or not? If you take a look at this, the last sentence, and of course most American school children are at some point also assigned to read these two books, and these books are classics for adults. So yes, most American school children are assigned to read them. They have to read them, but the books were written originally for adults. So the last statement here should be a false statement. Yeah, that's why it's not given. It is false. Alright. So let's move on now to question 53. The most difficult question of all. Now that brings us back to this quote here. Suzanne, are you purposely torturing your fans? That's a quote. Why is this comment, Suzanne, are you purposely torturing your fans, described as half mocking? Now let's look at this paragraph very carefully once again. So paragraph 4 opens to a few examples of dystopian literature, giving you the summaries of these works. And right here, line 47, for example, it says, in Maze Runner, teenage boys awaken all memories of their previous life is wiped clean in a walled compound surrounded by a monster-filled labyrinth. So is the summary of that book. Now here is the conclusion of paragraph 4. The books, those books, the previous examples, the books tend to end in cliffhangers that provoke their readers to pose these words, to say these words on the online discussion boards. So the very first thing you need to know is, well, what are cliffhangers? Well, actually, cliffhangers are the ends of a certain episode, of a certain chapter, of a certain book that ends in a certain way that makes you want to read the next episode, to read the next book, to read the next chapter as quickly as possible. They are the most exciting moment, and the chapter and the episode ends at that point, so that you want to read the next bit. But what you can do is to wait for the next bit. You may have to wait for a week, you may have to wait for a month, or you may have to wait for years in some cases. Those are cliffhangers. You have to the most exciting bit, but you can do nothing but to stop there and wait for the next bit, and you look forward earnestly to the next bit. Those are cliffhangers, a very common trick that writers, producers use in their work, when telling their stories. So that's the first thing you need to know, cliffhangers. But why is the comment described as half mocking? Now let's talk about the literal meaning, the surface meaning of this line. Suzanne, are you purposely torturing your fans? Well, usually when you say to people, hey, are you purposely torturing me? Torturing some people? Well, you say it because you feel that you're being hurt, you're being tortured, really physically. Now, but think, are the readers really being tortured by the writer? Are the readers being hurt physically by the writer? Well, the answer is, of course not. They are not being physically hurt or injured or tortured. But then the question is, why are they saying that? Well, they say it although they don't mean it. Then what are they trying to say? Well, then actually it is some kind of words that you can't just take the literal meaning. You have to go into the meaning behind those words. And in fact, when the fans are saying that, when the readers are saying those things, they're actually trying to say that, well, I enjoy your story, please give us the next bit quickly. Can you not just give us the cliffhangers? I want to read the next bit. If you have us wait, it's like hurting us, it's like torturing us. Well, I enjoy your stories, but can you give us the next bit quickly? I can't wait anymore. Now, with that understanding, if you know the meaning behind these words, you will know that the tone is a half mocking tone, it's a joking tone. They say it and they laugh about it because it's like a joke. Yeah. So to answer this question, you have that basic background understanding, and the answer here says, well, they say it and it's described as half mocking because in fact they enjoy the books a lot. They find the books extremely thrilling and exciting. Yeah. So that's the truth. And the reason why they are saying it is that they are longing to find out what happens next. They are not saying this seriously. They are just saying this jokingly. The books end in cliffhangers and they want to know the next bit quickly. And in fact, they enjoy the books a lot. And they are using the word torturing because the ending of the story is like torture to them. And in fact, they are not physically hurt. They just can't wait to see the next chapter, the next book. That's it. Yeah. It's a very challenging question with a very low percent of 5 among the whole bunch of candidates. So it's the most difficult question. With this kind of question, you have to interpret the literal meaning, the surface meaning, and the hidden meaning of the reader, the writer, or the people who say it. And you have to also explain why this is such a tone and the background of all that. And you can all refer back to the last part of paragraph 4. Now I hope next time when you are facing this kind of questions, you will be able to do a better job. So that's question 53. Make a note there. Alright. Now last for the first half. Question 54. Based on information in P4 and P5, the title. If you have done that with me, highlighting the main words, like the maze runner, trapped in maze, group of teenagers can't remember, so you know memories, or memories of their previous lives wiped clean, so they can't remember. So it must be the maze runner. Now with the house of stairs, well, is the word maze again is there to distract you? But if you go there to line 60, 5 teenagers imprisoned in a seemingly infinite network of staircases. It turns out to be a gigantic box designed to condition the behavior, to control the behavior, to where they are being influenced to act, yeah, behavior, condition, that is to be influenced, yeah, in a certain way. So you find relationship here and there. Alright, behavior, condition, act, influence. Now, regarding the giver, the drawbacks of engineering a too harmonious social order, that is from the giver, yeah, societal harmony, harmonious social order, societal, the adjective. So again, even if you don't understand every bit, at least you find words that echo between this synopsis and the original passage. The White Mountains. The White Mountains, in which alien overlords install mind control caps on the heads of all those over the age of 13, tore through blah 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 blah. Okay, we'll talk about this line later on, but at least you know mentally control teenagers, yeah, outer space, and here you find aliens, yeah? Mind control caps, so mentally controlling the teenagers. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so that's the first half, and I'll meet you again soon. And why don't we take a quick break, get some water, go to the washroom, wash our face, get some snacks, and I'll see you soon. See you later.